This is the forgotten and somewhat obscure story of how two islands in New Zealand got to be named after an arcane Australian Aboriginal lady. Let's first get our bearings of where we are talking about. The sparsely populated Stewart Island. Rekiura, land of the glowing skies, the third largest island of New Zealand. Specifically, we'll be focusing on the Muttonbird Islands, named after these fellas. The muttonbird, also called sooty or titi. Traditionally harvested, they are, how do I put it diplomatically, an acquired taste. It is 1823 and whaling around the coast of New Zealand had just begun. Since 1810, sailors had similarly traipsed the southern shores of New Zealand on hit-and-run missions. 1810 was only 40 years after Captain Cook became the first European to sight the island. Seal pelts were a valuable commodity, making it economic for hunters to even make the journey from as far afield as Norway. Baltic pine Norwegian houses built by the descendants of the whalers can still be seen on the island's main township, Oban. Amongst the sealing crew that landed upon an unnamed small island off the coast of Stewart Island in 1823 was an Aboriginal lady, simply known as Black Mog, or Moggy for short. She was accompanied by her 2-year-old child. The vessel and crew had sailed from her hometown in Van Diemen Island, now called Tasmania. Now at the time, the relationship with the locals was, let's just say, fraught. Mistrust was rife on both sides. Between 1810 and 1821, a sealers' war took place in New Zealand, pitting local Maori against sealers and sailors. 74 are known to have died, but this total is bound to be on the light side of the ledger. The crew of the Tasmanian schooner were therefore rather wary of encountering the locals. For them, it wasn't their day. The sealers were set upon by a party of Rekiura Maori. Moggy's partner, a Scotsman, the name of whom has been lost in the mist of time, was captured. At the time, slavery of Europeans was a real thing. Moggy and her child managed to escape into the bush and sheltered in a cave. From this cave, they watched their only avenue to safety sail away. Their hearts must have sunk, knowing their benefactor, the Scotsman, was either now dead, or in servitude, or on that vessel. Against all odds, however, the Scotsman somehow managed to escape his captors. He now frantically searched the nameless island for Moggy and her child. That is the island you see in front of you. Coming up empty-handed, he then managed to attract the attention and then hitch a ride on an American schooner also chasing seals in the waters. He swore to return. Return he did. 3 months later, he was on the island again, foraging its recesses and bush for Moggy and her child. By this stage, Moggy was venturing out of her hiding spot in pursuit of food. Against all odds, Moggy and her child were found alive. A feat of survival in itself. From that day on, the island she was found on was called Big Moggy, or Mokanui. The smaller neighbour, Little Moggy, or Mokaniti. The ones you see on today's map. We know that Moggy did make it back to her Australian homeland. Black Mog drowned in a boating accident in northwest Tasmania in 1851, never knowing the legacy she had left in New Zealand. This fascinating story was given to me by Peter Tate when I visited Stewart Island on a tramping trip. Peter and Iris Tate run a B&B called Sails Ashore in Oban. The photo on your screen is the one I took. The Tates have lived on Rakiura since the 60s and do tours all over the island and out to the Ulva Bird Sanctuary. If you're ever heading to Stewart Island, be sure to check their place out. I hope you give this video a like and have a look around under the covers of my channel for more interesting things from New Zealand. Cheers.